Welcome to the latest episode of our podcast series for financial advisors. Today's episode is When Values No Longer Align, and ex-Wells Fargo advisors leap to independence, a conversation with Brian Pultman, founder and CEO of Correct Capital Wealth Management. I'm Jason Diamond, and this is the Diamond Podcast for financial advisors.
At Diamond Consultants, our mission is to help advisors live their best business life. We want every elite advisor to find exactly the right place for their business and their clients to thrive, whether it's at a wirehouse, a regional, boutique, or independent firm. As the industry's leading recruiters and consultants, we've transitioned more than $250 billion in assets under management in the past decade, and each year, 25% of transitioning advisors who manage $1 billion or more are our clients. If you'd like to talk, please feel free to give us a call at 908-879-1002. Are you a financial advisor who's curious about whether you're in the best place to serve clients, or if there might be a better way to optimize your business for the future? Should I Stay or Should I Go is a new book that serves as a self-guided journey, walking you through the key steps that Diamond Consultants takes with our advisor clients, whether considering change or not. Visit diamond-consultants.com/thebook to learn more.
There's no shortage of stories about advisors going independent, but rarely do you hear one this honest, this candid, or this grounded in humility. After more than 25 years at Wells Fargo, Brian Pultman made the leap to independence, not because he was chasing a big check or a headline deal, but because he knew his values no longer aligned with the firm. What followed was anything but easy. Like many founders, he faced a rocky transition, long hours, tough decisions, and moments of real uncertainty. But in that process, he found something more valuable: clarity. Clarity about the kind of business he wanted to build, the kind of leader he wanted to be, and what really mattered most to him as an advisor. In this episode, Brian shares his journey from wirehouse to independence, including one of the most honest and humble narratives about preparing for and ultimately making the leap. He shares what it felt like to start over after decades in the industry, and how leaning into education, transparency, and internal control helped shape now a thriving RIA that manages more than $1 billion in client assets. It's a conversation about building in-house versus outsourcing, about making intentional decisions, and about how every day in this business is a chance to get better, both for your clients and yourself. And above all, it's a reminder that growth isn't just about numbers. It's about aligning your business with your values and creating something that reflects who you are. So let's dive in. Brian, thanks so much for joining us once again. To start with, can you just walk us through your background and what brought you to the world of wealth management originally?
Well, I was born and raised in St. Louis. I'm the middle child of three and pretty much came from middle class, didn't come from much wealth at all. Our family owned a manufacturing facility downtown in St. Louis that made men's headwear. And my grandfather and his brother started back in the 40s. My father ended up going into the business, I think back in the 60s. He was actually finishing at WashU, but made a sacrifice that my grandfather needed him at the factory. And so it really started me getting me hooked in the finance world was as I was working at the factory during the summers when all my other buddies were going to camp. I went to Boy Scout camp and worked in the sweatshop for the most part. But literally, I would, on Fridays, every Friday, my grandfather and I would go to this real nice restaurant for lunch and then make our way out to the bank. And I was pretty much enamored with the banker that his job literally was to help other families succeed. And I thought, wow, what an incredible way to make a living to help others. And who would ever realize that years down the road, that would be my profession?
I've heard a lot of versions of answers to that question of kind of what brought people to the world of wealth management, as you might imagine, in hosting the show. And the one I find most fulfilling is a version of the one you just gave, like something to the effect of, I realized that I can make an impact by managing people's money. Like take a step back and really understand what a financial advisor does. It's powerful. And that's why we host this show. And I know that's why you take pride in what you do. So more to the point, Correct Capital Wealth Management, your current firm. Give us a little bit of context and perspective. What sort of services do you provide? Who do you serve? And if you don't mind, touch on the size of the firm as well.
Oh, absolutely. So as my journey continued, and let's say when I graduated college, my grandfather said to me, he said, hey, the family business is yours. But based upon it was a union shop, imports were bringing into the US and the quality was second to none. He said the manufacturing business is going downhill. As a matter of fact, the name of the manufacturing company was called Correct Cap Company. And so as the honor and legacy to my family, I ended up naming Correct Capital Wealth Management after the cap factory. So that's where the name came from. Moving forward from that experience, I would have to say that Correct Capital was born back in October of 2018. And we try to, as an independent RIA, be able to provide services that we provide the bigger broker dealers, but in a much more intimate setting itself. We manage about $1 billion, just under $1 billion of assets, serve about 425 households, and our pretty much target is, let's say, $2 million to $20 million. That's our sweet spot for the most part.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Yeah, no, it's a really solid firm. I'm excited to dive more into how you got there, ultimately why you decided to set it up as you did. But there's a couple elements of your journey that I want to double click into. First of all, I love the origin story and the ties to the garments or the hat business. It's a great story. But 7 years ago, when you kind of launched this thing from Wells to running your own RIA, you made that leap. The ecosystem certainly wasn't what it is today. Right. Today, I think most people would agree there's a pretty robust infrastructure and ecosystem around supporting RIAs, platform firms, even the custodians, I would argue, have taken some steps forward. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, why was that the decision you made at the time?
Well, if you recall, my predecessor was going through a lot of problems. 2016, they had some bogus open account things, and everything just started going downhill from there. 17, 18. And literally, one of my closer clients, the wife, on the way out, grabbed me by the arm and just said, "Hey, if it wasn't for you, we would never be here. We just don't like the values of the firm. We don't like how they treat minorities. We don't like how they treat women." All these different things that she had these concerns about why I would stay there if my values were in check with hers. And that really got my eyes open. As I started looking around, you're right, the industry has evolved so much. I contract with two of the major players today. And I'll even tell you, this law firm, Brian Hamburg, and also Dynasty, two outstanding organizations. A good friend of mine left his firm and used both these players. And I contacted both of them. And unfortunately, they wanted to change my contract at the last minute, literally from a 2-year to a 4-year deal. The expenses were crazy. And I felt like, you know what, I can't afford this. I need to find another plan B. And so I was pretty stressed out to find another player from the West Coast to help us extract and move on. And it was very stressful, no question about it.
Yeah. And honestly, so Brian Hamburger's firm, Market Counsel, and certainly Dynasty, I would argue that they are players in a much broader story, which is this story of advisors moving from more captive channels into more independent channels. And certainly Dynasty was the pioneer in that space of allowing advisors what they would call supported independence. No question about it. It's been a space that's changed dramatically. I mean, even if I think back 2 years ago, it's changed a lot, let alone 7, 8, or 9 years ago, as you're alluding to. Did you look at, other than the firms or contenders you just mentioned, but did you consider other paths? Like, what about just moving the business to a wirehouse or to an independent broker dealer? Did you ever take a look at those options?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm very blessed. In St. Louis, we've got a lot of options here. You have a lot of players. Edward Jones, Raymond James has a good presence. Of course, you have Stiefels that's based here. Tad Edwards, Benjamin Edwards has an operation, and plus a whole load of RIAs. I looked at quite a few of them. As a matter of fact, the regional guy from Morgan Stanley approached me because a dear friend of mine went to Morgan Stanley, and he said, "Hey, Brian, look it, on Monday, we're announcing we're getting out of protocol. I've got a big budget. I'm going to blow it on you. You tell me what you want. Here's my number. I'm thinking, let's make this happen." And I went to my dad and I said, "Here, I got this offer right now." He says, "What do you think?" He says, "Why wouldn't you take it?" I said, "Dad, look, I ran the numbers. After 8 years, the payout would be here. My clients are going to pay even higher fees. I just make the big jump completely independent. That shows a statement to my clientele that I'm not just doing it for the money, I'm doing it for them." And that's what I decided to do. And it was not an easy jump because it'd been so easy just to plug in, whether it's another broker dealer or one of the other regional firms that are here, and even some of the greater RIAs in St. Louis. I mean, you have Buckingham, Bonetta, you got some players here in town that have been such an easy deal. But I felt this was a statement, and if I was to do it, I'm going to do it all the way.
No question. I mean, you could argue you left 4x revenue on the table by doing what you did because firms would pay top dollar in the form of a recruiting deal for your business. So I appreciate that perspective. I have to ask now, as a maybe a little bit of a shameless plug, but also just because, I mean, you've mentioned Brian Hamburger and Market Counsel, but also just generally believing in the value of good advice and good counsel. Did you use a recruiter or any sort of consultant? Did you go about just getting educated entirely on your own? Like, what was the due diligence process like for you?
After I unfortunately parted ways with the two players that were helping me on the extraction, I was really in a jam. I mean, literally, I thought I had plenty of time. My neighbor yells over the fence, "Hey, Brian, congratulations. I heard you left." I said, "What are you talking about?" And I panicked. I thought the word got out that we were looking to move, and I stressed out. Ended up finding some company on the West Coast that I contracted with, and they seemed to have their act together and sold me a bill of goods because literally after 6 months, they helped us get out. We picked up a custodian. We got the compliance, all the players, everything up and running. But literally, after we had a 2-year deal, after 6 months, I went to the CEO. I said, "Look, here's 8 deals, things that are just not coming together." And every time I call the compliance person to give support, this individual will be out fishing with their dad. I mean, literally on the boat. And I just didn't feel as a quality and caliber. I said, "Look, you can sue me for the 50 grand termination fee, but I think we both realized let's just end as friends and move on." And literally after about 6 months, or maybe it was up towards a year by this time, we parted ways and we basically built everything internally. Our internal compliance, we hired somebody out of Denver, Colorado. We got payroll, we have HR. I had to do everything individually. So the way I did it, I would not recommend it. Once again, its key thing is to plan and give yourself plenty of time to get yourself in order. But more importantly, now that some of these organizations are so much more polished, they make it so easy just to contract with them. Sure, you don't want to pay them the fee, but it's worth it.
Wow. So you had an interim step before ultimately landing in what we would call your own RIA. You actually did indeed affiliate with a support partner. And it sounds like in your case, it wasn't the right fit. And to your point, I think that space has evolved tremendously. And it also probably further drives home the point. It sounds like you also had a little bit of a fire drill situation because of the potential that you were found out. It's what I was alluding to with my question is the need for being really thoughtful. To me, there is a quality support partner out there today to support just about any and all element of an advisor's business. The question is, what do you want to do? And is it worth the cost? Do you agree with that assessment? Like maybe I'd ask it a different way. Now you have your own RIA. Do you do everything in house? I mean, there's got to still be things that you're outsourcing to support partners, no?
We pretty much do most everything internally here right now. We have our own bookkeeper, we do payroll, we have compliance internally, but we still use a compliance organization out in Denver. That person that we started with, one of the individuals broke off and started her own firm and we went with her. So I believe that you don't want to be cheap when it comes to compliance. We had a securities exchange exam about a year and a half ago in December. And it's not an easy process, but I tell you what, I felt very confident because not only we had internal compliance, but it's worth having that insurance for the external compliance that really knows your ways in and out. So there's some things you can do internally, such as payroll, some HR, but you need to still have some outside consulting. And I still use other consultants. For example, when we started off here in a small firm, everybody starts to see the revenue. And one by one, my team members would come in and say, "Hey, I'd like a little bit more of a raise. Hey, I like some equity. Hey, I want this." It's like, yeah, great. In a big firm, everything's organized. There's policies, procedures. So I hired a company out of Arizona to help me put together a very comprehensive compensation plan that not only pays everybody a very aggressive competitive base based upon Schwab and Fidelity's industry averages there on the up end, plus there's individual incentives, there's team incentives. I mean, this move to Correct Capital Wealth Management is not all about Brian. It's number one about the client, and number two about the team members. As we grow, we all grow and we all benefit together. And I couldn't have done it without the outside consulting world.
Actually, you just reminded me, I promised an advisor that I was speaking with that I would ask about this because we get this question a lot. It's a little bit of a niche question, but I want to ask health benefits. How do you handle that as an independent small business owner? Do you outsource it to like a PEO type organization? Can you talk what you do?
Yes. In the network of St. Louis, I came across this guy at the gym where I work out. He handles all these types of insurance things. So within the team itself, we have a private wealth side that I oversee. We have a retirement division, another individual. He oversees that. In addition to his responsibilities, he's like my business manager. So he takes care of all of our insurance, health cares, most all the HR items themselves. So we delegate out. In a small firm, we wear many hats. So one of my administrators, she's also in the compliance and finishing a very comprehensive 2-year compliance certification deal that she will take over the compliance thing in January. So we worked that out and we were just able to go direct and get these type of services all put together.
And do you find the cost and the quality of the benefits, not just for healthcare, but benefits in general, to be a step below, for example, the wirehouse or the traditional firm world? I think people worry about that. Like it's one of the major concerns about leaving behind the big firm world.
Not at all. Look at
Okay.
the big firms. The biggest problem was maternity leave. I had an individual come to me and she was really worried about maternity leave. I said, look, I'll match Wells Fargo's, but I didn't know what the maternity leave was, but I figured I would just match it. And I got it was like 16 weeks full pay. And literally, we ran into some problems with that. And they're a small firm. That's a long time to have someone away. But I wanted to be supportive. So other team members stepped up to help carry the ball there. But as overall, I would say our benefits are equal, if not better, just because how much that we pay in support of the employee, the flexibility we have, how family comes first, all these different things that we do as a small firm, making decisions quickly, whatever works best for the team member.
Yeah, I think that's the right answer to the question. Like basically you've chosen to prioritize it because it's important to you and your team. And that's the beauty of independence. Like that's you as the CEO, buck stops with you and you're entitled to make those decisions. So I want to ask you one more question now about the moving of the book or the transition process. How long did it take you to move assets? You alluded to as the book started to generate revenue. And that's obviously a major concern for somebody who's leaving the comfort of a W-2, let's say a wirehouse, and launching an independent business. Even if you're successful, there's going to be a lag time where you're not generating revenue. So how long did it take you to move assets? And when did you really feel like, okay, I've got this?
I tell you, our start out of the gate was really tough. I mean, literally at the beginning, as St. Louis being a small little town for me, because I was born and raised, as I mentioned earlier, I couldn't rent an office without disclosing who I was. And all the players that own the offices, we all knew each other in the industry, the community, and it would definitely get back to my management. So, I mean, I'm down in Florida on an incentive trip, and I'm calling the owner of the building I wanted to get into in Clayton, Missouri here. And I said, hey, you own a building in St. Louis. I'm leaving my firm. I said, you ever see the movie Jerry Maguire? He says, what are you talking about? He says, I'm leaving my firm. I'm starting my own gig. I said, are you with me? My hands up high or without me? Without missing a beat, this guy says, Brian, show me the money. And we got along pretty well. We negotiated a deal so I could at least get an office. Once the office was set up, getting a printer to do labels and all these things to work out as far as doing the mailing, everything just got messed up. It was the most stressful time of my life. I mean, I don't have 15 pounds to lose, but I lost quite a bit of weight going through the stress. Beyond that, we contract with Fidelity, and literally I'm walking out of the room one day with Fidelity, and the guy's talking to his regional manager saying, man, what a crazy show this is going on here in St. Louis. And I went home that night to my wife and we had a conversation like at 2 a.m. I couldn't sleep. And she looked at me and she says, hey, it's not like you're going back. Just power through this. I mean, she was my rock through this whole process to get through, and I was not going back. So to answer your question directly, we got up and running, I'd say within 4 to 6 months that really money was really seriously coming in. We had a good, let's say 50, 60% of the people that moved immediately. We had some things straggle. The problem was even Fidelity didn't realize that there's certain roadblocks some of these big broker dealers put up. For example, the money markets that some of these firms use that Wells used was like a Goldman Sachs money market that every one of our clients had to end up calling back to Wells Fargo to verbally liquidate their money market. Huge problem. Number two, education 529s. They're held at some of these bigger firms in an omnibus account where they require a whole nother signature guarantee and a whole process to move those. Once again, we had no idea what we're getting into, nor did Fidelity at the time. So those are some of the challenges. I would say it cost me over $300,000 of my own capital to fund the organization over the first year to get us through that process. And then from there on, in the second year, that's when things started to really click. I mean, things just started coming together and we never looked back.
There's a lot to unpack there, and I want to double click into some, I think, important points there. First of all, I'm actually happy that you gave a somewhat negative answer in terms of like, no, this was not the best experience and we did not have an A+ transition. First of all, I think it's good proof that we do not cherry pick our guest breakaway stories. I mean, we want to hear the good and the bad. I also think, though, we mentioned you were fairly early to this journey to independence. I wouldn't say you were in the first wave, but you were probably in the second or third wave in the breakaway space. And that comes with being not a guinea pig, but something of a guinea pig. So a lot of the roadblocks you're alluding to, these firms have just gotten really good at solving. Like some of those examples you gave are just non-events in the 2025 land. And that's not a sales pitch. It's just a fact of life. Transitioning to the independent space today, versus 2016, 2017, 2018. A lot has changed. The other thing I wanted to say was I think everybody, even if you had the best transition in the world, there is that moment, couple weeks, whatever it is, where you're like, oh my God, this is a lot. I'm overwhelmed. Did I make a huge mistake? I mean, I think a lot of advisors feel that way. And ultimately, I think your wife's guidance is the right one. Like you've already made the decision and you can't go back. And even you, who it sounds like the initial transition was pretty negative. I mean, obviously you volunteered to come on the show. This story has a happy ending, right? So I think believing in the power of power through, it feels like has served you well. So no regrets, fair to say, no regrets in the move?
No regrets at all. I mean, literally, I think the big wirehouses are phenomenal. They're phenomenal for many reasons. One in particular is the training and exposure you get to. It's really difficult. I mean, look, we don't have a training department. I mean, we bring somebody else new on, and my team says we'll train each other because we cross-train, et cetera. But literally, there's a lot of benefits to the big broker-dealer things. But really down the road, we all know that the RIA space is exploding, and to have that independence, that fiduciary, all those kind of positive things for the client, those things really matter.
Yep. Well said. What about your clients in terms of not necessarily moving assets over, but their reaction in terms of just when you had conversations with them? You obviously went from a pretty big established brand in Wells Fargo to your own RIA. What was the story and how did your clients react to it?
Extremely positively. I mean, they all read the news. They know what's going on out there. And literally, it was extremely supportive. We only had one corporate 401k plan at the last second. The attorney kind of said, hey, we need to do due diligence. And that didn't work out too well because the business kind of went downhill. It never moved. But the point is, 95% plus of our clients moved immediately. Even some of the ones, handful that did not, about half of them did come over that the following year or two. So as we look back, there's nothing else I would have done different on the communication with the clients. We kept them up to speed. We sent out letters immediately, letting them know what they expect, why we did this, what's in it for them. So that communication was really important to make sure they felt secure and understood that Direct Capital Wealth Management does not continue to hold any assets at all internally. All assets are held at our custodians. Here's our insurance. Here's how we're operating. And every one of them was extremely positive.
Yeah, it's interesting that I think that's the biggest piece that advisors need to wrap their heads around. And with this move to the independent space, almost no matter how you slice it. And we've spoken on this show and in our content, if you're familiar, a million times about all the different versions of independence that there are. But no matter what version of independence, whether it's a broker dealer like an LPL, whether it's a support platform like a Dynasty or a Sanctuary, or whether it's starting your own RIA directly with a Fidelity, no matter what, the story is a very different story than Mr. and Mrs. Client, I'm going to Merrill, or I'm moving my book to Morgan or to RBC. And the story becomes much more about your own brand, part one, and then also the separation of asset custody from your firm. So I like how you tell that story. And I'm not surprised that your clients reacted positively to it. I think that's probably the one thing, like, well, maybe I'll ask you, were you surprised that your clients reacted as positively as they did? I think advisors often fear like, oh my God, my clients are going to laugh in my face.
I was deeply humbled by their support, and it really made me feel good. I ended up walking out of there, starting a company, signing on the dotted line, basically no assets, no clients for the most part, and on the hope and prayer that they would all follow me. And looking back, I mean, I feel a lot of gratitude to each and every one of those families. And even today, when we do reviews, I tell them, since inception of Correct Capital, since you came over, which I deeply still today value and appreciate, here's your performance. I mean, I say that almost every day to people because I never take that trust for granted.
Yep, I love it. All right, let's move on now. I want to talk more about the specifics of your firm. I was clicking around on your website and just trying to get a little more familiar with the types of services you provide. And I noticed one of the things that's front and center is you appeal directly to construction, architecture, and contractor folks. Can you talk about that niche and if you feel like that's been a growth driver, just having a niche in general?
Well, I mean, there's no question. They talk about niche business and being an expert in that area itself is a very good plus. It's out of college. One of the first companies I worked for was Owens Corning Fiberglass, and I had a big presence in the construction industry. So I understood the individuals that made up that industry. And over time, we got awarded in Missouri to be the go-to provider for the retirement plan for the Missouri General Contractor Association, which was a nice home run for us. So we focus in that arena because we can basically specialize and understand what some of their concerns and needs are. Beyond that, we have mostly the family-owned businesses. Out of college, the second job I had was working for a commercial office furniture group, and all my clients were all commercial offices and businesses. So it just made sense that I started leading with 401k plans because I'd rather talk to, let's say, 10, 20, 30, 50 people instead of one or two. And that way, over time, you get access to much more people. So in those arenas, we started focusing on construction, retirement plans, and it just all kind of snowballed in that direction. And then looking back today, though, we got a lot of clients across the board, but we do have a focus in the construction area and business owners. And the last one actually is in women. We have a big presence with women investors because we take a more of an educational approach, much more patience. And we tell people, we much rather spend 3-6 months up front educating you, making sure you're comfortable and confident in your decisions before we get into something. And then 6 months down the road, you come back and you said, well, I didn't know this, I could lose money or something like that. So our approach really attracts those particular target groups.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And by the way, you're speaking our language because our approach for those who have worked with us or spoken with us is also completely centered on education, and totally agree with your thinking that the old an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Like those 6 months up front are well worth laying the foundation. The reason I asked you about the niche was not because every advisor who listens has a construction or a healthcare or a CPA niche, but do you think that by having that sort of cred or that credential, it allows you to be more referable? Like every advisor wants referrals, right? But by saying we specialize in this space, do you now get more at bats with, like, is it almost like a flywheel where you're now consistently seeing flow into that space?
Well, in any type of area that you specialize in, you're going to get known more in that industry, in that arena. And that way there's more synergy to say, hey, Capital Brian's team is the go-to. So we're still trying to achieve that. I'll have to tell you, though, over the years, the referral source in my area, that's one area that I really need to continue to work stronger on to continue to build that up. And unfortunately, I'm an old-fashioned guy. I'll meet somebody running, or I'll meet somebody at the gym, whatever it may be, old school, sitting on a board meeting. But the point is, today, a lot of it's through the internet. We get a lot of things on our internet presence, actually. People across the country will click in and find us and be able to have an opportunity for us to earn their trust.
It's a great answer. And by the way, I'm choosing to blame the 15 pounds you lost on the running and the gym routine instead of the stressful transition.
Wish I could say that was true, but thank you.
All right, let's talk a little bit now growth. So do you feel now, okay, we've built a well-oiled machine and we're ready now to add some M&A? Have you had any success with it? Or is your growth focus mostly what we would consider organic growth?
Well, I've tried a couple of times. I go to these Barron's conferences and I meet some amazing people, and I feel like I'm just starting out when you're talking to people that are shooting the 12, 15, $20 billion days. But I have to be happy with my own sandbox here. And the reality is I've tried to make some pitches against some individuals that come and join us, merge with us, whatever we can do to finance a good vision. But it's hard to compete against some of these broker dealers that are laying down big percentages and big money up front. And some people just don't understand it. And like two big players that came from different firms that went to another firm that I was trying to compete against, even today, I still speak with them and they hate it. I mean, just the compliance, the process of getting things through, all the agreements, it's very difficult. But I have not had much success in that. I continue to have conversations, but most of the growth we're having right now is just bringing in new assets with new relationships. I love meeting new people, and I'm educating my other team members to be more rainmakers in the way our compensation is set up. They receive a certain percentage of the first year revenue. So they're motivated and they're equipped to succeed now.
Yeah, no, it's a great answer. And it's a refreshing take, honestly, because we hear a lot like, oh yeah, M&A, I'd love to do it, or I'm great at it, or I want to do more. The reality is what you just said is the 100% truth. And I tell firms this all day, every day when they tell me they want to recruit more. You are competing against more than ever before. We talk a lot about how advisors have more choice than ever before and how it's a great time to be an advisor. And that's true. But the flip side of that is if you're trying to recruit, it's more competitive than ever. And that means you're exactly right. By trying to do M&A or acquire or recruit a business, you're not just competing against other similar sized or similar geographic firms. You're competing against Morgan Stanley and RBC and Schwab and Fidelity and Beacon Point and so I appreciate that insight. I think it's a very fair and refreshing approach. But the other side of the M&A coin is potentially selling. Do you think about that at all? Do you think about your exit strategy or the fact that you could monetize and it's going to be worth something tremendous?
All the time. Several people that when I was at AG Edwards, one of the nicest things about the brotherhood there is that we could talk to different advisors all across the country, can help each other grow our businesses. I still keep in touch with some of these people today. As a matter of fact, when I was leaving and starting my own firm, I called some of these individuals that basically are competitors of mine today. But I mean, literally, they've been amazing. Competitors, you'd think they might not want to talk with you, but thank God I didn't burn any bridges 30 years ago. I helped train some of these people. It's amazing to find out how the brotherhood among the industry is. And even though you're like competing against each other, as long as you're a quality person, you didn't burn the bridges, I feel very blessed that these people have helped me out tremendously. But as you ask the question, I do think about it all the time because it's a big risk. God forbid something happens to me. One, what happens to the clients? Two, what happens to my team members? So I just have not found any opportunities at this time that fits us. And I would be interested in some type of perhaps a partnership or merger that would help us accelerate the growth. I mean, right now being independent, we can make decisions, we're having fun, we're growing, we're able to take care of the client. So I don't really see any immediate need to do any type of change in the ownership or structure. However, there is a big risk, and I need to continue to explore those opportunities.
Yeah. And again, I appreciate your honesty. I think you might be in line for some phone calls from some of our listeners after this who could be interested in potentially exploring something, because there are a lot of advisors who I think struggle with both sides of this. Like, I call it the succession conundrum or the succession equation. Like the notion that as an advisor, you are constantly wrestling with literally both sides of the same situation. Number one, you need to grow and you know you need to train a next gen and have a next gen, but you also know your own succession is an event in and of itself. It's an interesting dynamic. I also love what you say about the team or sort of industry camaraderie. And I try not to take a side on like the whole wirehouse versus independence debate, but I do believe one of the areas where the independent space in particular has done a great job is in this, there's enough food to go around for everybody. And the firms we speak to or engage with oftentimes say what you say, like it's a brotherhood and people are very open to idea sharing. Do you agree with that?
I totally agree with that.
Yeah. All right. Let me ask you now, future of the company. If we have you on in 5 or 10 years, and we certainly might, what does Correct Capital look like? Do you have ambitions? Do you have new verticals you're pursuing? Tell me. And beyond just, we want to be at X dollars in assets.
I have a vision as far as the next few years going forward, because as time goes on, the industry continues to evolve. I mean, I'm blessed. I got two great kids. My daughter works for a private equity firm in Chicago, has no interest in the RI industry. My son's a financial analyst for McDonald's Corporation, same thing. He gets the industry. He loves the industry. He's always shooting me texts, hey, buy this, sell that. But, I want them to do what they want, what they love about their passion. So my mission and vision right now is to build up my bench. And we're right now in the process of hiring a senior FA that could perhaps be the new CEO of the firm in the next 2 years and be able to allow me a little bit more time to focus on the next chapter of Correct Capital, whether it be a partnership or merger or sale. If we build the team out correctly, give the opportunity to team members to see if maybe we do some type of a team ownership thing, an ESOP or something going forward, if that makes more sense. So I always say, Brian's fine. I want to make sure that the rest of the team and we all continue to grow together there.
Yep, absolutely. And that's, I think, where this journey of independence especially becomes rewarding, is the realization that you've built something and you haven't built it alone. And so it even more confuses. Again, that's why I call it a succession conundrum, because it becomes even more confusing. Like, I understand the predicament that a lot of advisors are in, where on the one hand, Brian could monetize his business for a meaningful sum of money. But on the other hand, Brian has a staff that he cares about. He has clients that he cares about, potentially children. I think a lot of advisors wrestle with it, and there's no one size fits all answer. So I appreciate you sharing that. Go ahead.
In addition to that, part of our job in the financial industry is to help people live the best life possible and to retire. And you wonder, how do you define retirement? So maybe today, this is my retirement because this gives me an amazing amount of purpose. I love what I do. I literally look at my job like therapy for me, just to kind of be out there, and every single day is different. And when you can make an impact in someone's life, not just financially, but to help them get a doctor if they were just diagnosed with a cancer. I just had a situation the other day. A dear friend of mine has some pancreatic cancer, wants to get a second opinion. Within an hour, I am on the phone with the head of oncology at a major hospital in St. Louis, getting 2 referrals for him. The doctor calls the doctor office, is letting him know, hey, this guy's going to be calling you in the next day or two. Please see him sooner than later. So I mean, those types of things matter beyond the money side.
Incredible example. I really appreciate you sharing with us. Any final advice or wisdom you'd share with our audience? This has been fantastic. I think your journey is super relatable. And I want to say one of the things I appreciate most is how humble you are and how willing you are to point out, here's what I've done well, but also here's where I think I need to continue to do a better job. You mentioned 2 or 3 times referrals and where you say by your own admission, I know this is an important area, but something I got to do more in. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. My coldest comments would be, I continue to evolve and to learn. I mean, one of my professors from my university and I still get together still today. And he says the 2 things I failed at in his mind was 1, I didn't get my MBA, and 2, I never learned how to play golf, but on a regular basis. But he says, looks like the M&A wasn't that important. Starting your own RIA is getting like a PhD. I mean, the education and knowledge that you're going to gain, the rewards are just over the top. But owning a business or an RIA is not for everyone. But the ones that can multitask, multi-manage, and attract career-minded team members, the rewards are going to be amazing for the whole entire group. As we evolve in this industry to help people, don't be afraid, once again, I said, to contact other associates, financial advisors in the industry, to ask their opinion, what they learned, what they would do differently, and to just decide where you see yourself 3-5 years down the road. Being independent, I feel, is the best place to be able to be organized, focused, and enjoy the journey.
I love it. Thank you so much once again, Brian. This has been fantastic. We will have to have you on for the 3 or 5 year recap to see. And please also tell your mentor that it's never too late to learn golf. That'd be my most important advice for this episode. No, I'm kidding. But thank you again, Brian.
Well, I thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. It's exciting to watch you and your business has evolved over the years because I was exposed to your mom 30 some odd years ago when I first got in the industry, and it's been exciting to see how that you carry on that family tradition. So thanks for having me. Wish you all well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Take care, Brian.
Thank you.
As a financial advisor, you hold yourself to the highest standards of integrity, honesty, and credibility. You are successful because you take your professional responsibilities seriously and are dedicated to your clients. But are you living your best business life? Are your goals aligned with your firm's, or could a better option exist? Should I Stay or Should I Go is a book written with you in mind. It's a self-guided journey that walks you through the key steps that we take with our advisor clients. This strategic thought process and roadmap to professional self-discovery is designed to help you ask the right questions and think critically and objectively, whether you're considering change or not. Learn how to get your copy at diamond-consultants.com/thebook.